Hi, another Bowens Gemini G500R Studio Flash. And I still think these look like something off Duke Nukem. Come get some. So, a viewer called Stuart sent me this, and what he said was he bought it about 3 years ago. It wasn't working. He sent it around a few so-called repairers, and none of them have managed to solve the issue. And the problem is the flash bulb won't flash. So he said, could I have a look at it? Now, I have had a look at one of these before, but it was a completely different problem. On the one I looked at, they have a, what's called a, I think it's a modelling light, which is this smaller bulb here. And then we've got the main flash here. And on the one I looked at previously, it was a problem with the modelling flash. And I think it was a triac buried somewhere in here. That was the problem, if I remember right. So apparently this one now doesn't do a lot. He said the display in that used to light up, but since it's been around a few repairers now, it doesn't even do that. So we might not be able to repair this one, unfortunately, but we'll have a go. I can hear something rattling around inside, which doesn't sound good. And I've also noticed that some of these LED little plastic lenses, this one's sticking up, that one's missing, so that could be some of the things that's rattling around inside there, I don't know. Well, let's figure out how it comes apart. And if I remember, there was some rubber bungs on the back here to remove this handle. I think it was those two down there. And I think you have to take this part off here. But I might take the modelling light out. I'll just get some gloves on, take the modelling light out first so we don't damage that. And then we'll take it apart. Right, let's grab some gloves. Right, I've just got one glove on here. Let's just see if we can get this bulb out. So it screws out. Right, so I've got that out of the way now. Let's see if we can get this little plastic cover off. Well, I'm not sure if anybody else has been into this by the look of things, because this cover doesn't seem like it's been taken off before. Is that what's on? They've put it on quite well. Right, so we'll get that bit off and out of the way. I'm just going to remove this bracket here, or stand or whatever it is. Not sure if this one's got some kind of RFID or something. Well, somebody has been into it before, because I can see these rubber bungs here are all chewed up. And usually when other people have been into stuff before you, it's usually not really a good outcome. I've got those two bungs out. But what I might do is just power it up a second. I'm going to put it through the dim bulb tester first, just to see what it's actually doing, if anything. So I'm just going to grab the dim bulb tester. And it's just an incandescent light bulb. That's wired in series with the socket here. Let's get it a bit like that. And I've got the other end of the power lead here, so I'll just plug that in. And let's set the mains, so well, that looks like a short. It looks like the power supply came on for a second, and then the way we're getting the sort of flash like that to me suggests there's a short somewhere. So the power supply is trying to start up, and then it's shutting down with the overcurrent or whatever. So that's what I think so far. Let's see if we can get this back section off. Let's just hope it's nothing like a shorted microcontroller, in which case we'll not be able to repair this. That's a little UV cover for the infrared remote, because I think there's an IR sensor down there. And then there's a screw to remove here and a screw on the other side. Now remember, these had some rather large capacitors in, so we're going to have to proceed with caution. Now, did I have to undo the front parts of this? I can't quite remember now. It's been that long since I've looked at one of these. So I think I might have to undo some of the screws on the front here. So it looks like I'm going to need an Allen key to undo those. It's a little bit hard to see there. Yeah, because I think those two screws under there, I think you had to take this whole front section off. Right, I'm just going to grab an Allen key. Well, I've got a suitable Allen key, but I've just noticed there's a capacitor lying here. That must have fallen out. So that's not good. Nice. And that Allen key there, bolt, is slack. It's not even tightened up. Same with that one. And that one as well. So those are all slack. Now it looks like I might have to remove the flash tube as well. Now I know they've got a wire wrapped around. I'm not sure what the correct procedure to remove those is. There's a clip there, but it's got a, I think it's a Torx holding it in place. So I'm not sure whether you've got to undo the Torx or whether you're supposed to undo this wire that's wrapped around there. I think the last time I looked at one of these, I think I just undid the Torx. Because that looks rather neat the way it's wrapped around. It's a bit of an angle to get a Torx in there though. Seems to be about a T15. Oh, hold on. I don't think we need to take that off. I think the front is actually off as much as we need it off now anyway. Right, let's get this out of the way. I've got broken bits of plastic there. Nice. Oh. Now if I remember right, this bit comes off. I think it just unhooks from what I remember. Let's say it was some time ago. I mean, that's not going to work because we'll put the wire hanging off there. I mean, imagine if it was just that was the problem and it's been bounced all over the country and now it doesn't work at all. Actually, hold on. I can see another spade connector down there that hasn't got anything on it. I think I'm going to undo this case to get that out of the way. And that connector here goes to the modelling light. when I had a look at the last one, I remember there was lots of electronics on the back of this board as well. I don't know whether this one's the same. I'm sure the other one had more capacitors in the other one I looked at. I'm sure there was more capacitors here. Right, I'll just zoom down a little bit on these connectors here, just for when I come to put this back, I know what plugs go to where. And there's the rather large capacitors underneath. Right, it seems I can undo this wire here. And we get a first look at the board underneath. Let's see if we can see where there's a capacitor broken off from, and I indeed can. So it looks like that capacitor is broken off from here. Looks like that one's a bit wobbly. Just having a look around just to see if I can see anything that looks obvious. The little microcontroller here, and remember that controlled the triac, which was here for the modelling light, but I didn't really trace through the rest of the circuit because that was the only thing that was broken on the other one that I looked at. I mean, it doesn't actually look too bad to work on. It's just going to be a bit awkward to be able to test things because we can't really power it up when it's sort of like this, especially with those. Yeah, 3200 microfarads at 400 volts will give you a little bit of a nip. I don't really fancy that myself. Well, I think the first thing that we need to do is going to be to refit this capacitor and then see if we can get the lights and that back on the microcontroller. Because that looks like the output of the power supply. Yeah, it looks like a little, little TNY chip there. That's the inductor for the power supply. And that'll be the smoothing cap. So that's probably why we're just getting the flashing, because it can't regulate the power supply properly because there's no smoothing cap. Now whether or not that's damaged anything else remains to be seen. But we'll get this on first and then we'll see what happens after that. Right, I'm just going to tin those pads first. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a pain to try and get this on. There's just no room for the legs. I'm just going to have to have a rethink on this one. Can I get it from the bottom of the board? Not really. I don't want to be using heat on it, especially with being electrolytic, it might just explode. checking I'm putting this in the right way. I think I'm struggling a bit with this. It's a little bit small for me to work on. I see my eyes aren't as good as what they used to be, so I don't know whether to try and get this under the microscope and do it. Well, I managed to solder the capacitor back on. You can just see it here. And I've touched up the other one just next to it as well. I thought I might as well just reinforce the solder on the one next to it, just in case that one's been a bit weakened as well. Well, I've half put it back together. It's going to need these 3 LEDs replaced because I've had the top smashed off them. And when I was changing the cap just before I did that, I did check that there wasn't any power in the capacitors, just in case you were wondering. And they were all completely flat. Because I remember on the last one, it's got this big resistor down here that discharges the capacitors. So, right, let's get the power lead. I'm just going to put it through the dim bulb tester again. And hopefully we're not shorting anything out. Right, let's just switch it on. Let's try and get the dim bulb tester in shot. Well, it did something. I can't tell if the LED lights came on or not. It's just a bit of an awkward thing to work on this. Let's just try it that way. Well, just got a brief flash again. So just the same. Let's just try it straight into the mains, just in case it's something to do with the dim bulb tester. It shouldn't have, but you never know. So it's either going to go bang or maybe do something different. Just going to lean back a bit. No, it's just doing the same. Right. It's going to be quite hard to debug this one, I think. Right. Let's take it apart again then. I'm just going to check across the 2 terminals that go to the strobe here. And there's the 2 wires that go to the main cap, which doesn't have any charge in it, so I'm just wondering if I can kind of flip this board over a bit. Maybe try and test some voltages on it. I wonder if it's better if I spin it round and then I can get access to that side of the board. I guess when they service these at a shop or wherever, they've probably got some kind of test jig. I'm just wondering if I can measure the resistance across that capacitor that I've just put in. Whether that would show if there's a short or something. Let's just see if I can do that. And get on one side of it there. About 500 ohms or so. I think that was it anyway. Actually, I think it goes to that pin there, which looks like K. Well, what I might do is disconnect the caps, disconnect the front head part, so I'm not actually charging the capacitors up, and then see if I can power it up and measure this little power supply down here. Well, it looks like this is going to have multiple problems, I think. I don't know if the problem's trying to get this into some kind of state where you can actually work on it. Well, that may be a little bit better. I'll clip this part back onto there. That's those two capacitors disconnected. Let's try across that capacitor first. It doesn't appear that we've got any shorts. And that communicates through to the other processor. Looks like it might have another little power supply down here. There's another little inductor and an opto isolator there. Well, I think I might power it on and we'll just see if we can measure some voltages on these capacitors, just to see if we're getting any voltages on them. And to rule out a short on the front panel, I might disconnect the front panel even, like so. I'm trying to get this earth wire out of the way so we're not shorting anything out. And I'll plug it into the dim bulb tester as well. Nice. Right, I'll just zoom out a little bit. I'll go into volts AC first. We'll just check that we're getting voltage into this. Right, 236. This very carefully. Well, we're 12 volts there, which seems nice and steady. I don't seem to have anything on that capacitor though. Or on that one. So is this a voltage regulator here or something maybe? I've got 5 volts there now. I'm just going to switch this back off. I'm just going to try and maneuver it around a little bit. I'm just going to plug that front panel back in. Let's try and angle this around a bit so you can see it a bit better. Right, I'm just going to switch it on again now. Okay, we've got the flashing lights again. Let's just turn this back over. And we'll just measure the voltages again with the front panel plugged in. I'm just going to switch it back on now. I'm just going to check what no wires shorten or anything. Right. You can see there the power supply is trying to start up and it's shutting straight back down. I think there's a short on that front panel. Or something like that anyway. It could be the power supply itself, but the only thing I've done is plugged in that ribbon cable down there, which I don't know if you can see it. That just goes to the front panel here. So I've got this switched off at the moment. It doesn't look like there's really much on this front panel apart from the chip. I'm going to grab the thermal camera. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. I think the next thing would be to either try and find out where the 5V supply goes. We'll try powering up this microcontroller board with just the bench power supply. And then if that powers up okay, it must be something on the power supply side. Or if it doesn't, it must be a short on here. Let's just hope it's not the microcontroller. I better not touch that because it's not isolated. Well, I've spent a little bit of time just having a quick look just to see which pins actually have power on this display board here. So this is the voltage regulator. I'll just try and zoom down a little bit more. Let's see if I can just get the meter in shots just so you can see there. So this is the ground of the voltage regulator. And this is the connector that goes to the display. So all of this row a ground, and then the supply 5V comes in on the other side on that pin there and that pin there. If I plug the display in, which it is, and then go between ground and +5, we've got about 2 ohms or 1 ohm there. If I unplug the display and try it, the short's gone. So on the display board, I'll just show you the same thing. So this row here, you can see those pins there are all connected together. So all the grounds are these pins across the top here. So if I go between that pin and that pin, you can see it's ground, ground, ground. And the supply comes in on these 2 pins here. So if I go between ground, you can see I've got 2 ohms or 1 ohm. So there's a short on this display board. And there's not much on the display board apart from a couple of transistors, the microcontroller. Now, there are some broken LEDs. So perhaps one of those has shorted out and caused the microcontroller to blow. I'm not 100%, but I'll hook it up to the bench power supply. We'll try injecting 1 volt, because now we know which pins are which, and we'll see what gets hot. Right, I'll hook the bench power supply up. Right, I've got the bench power supply ready, and I've got it set to 1 volt at 1 amp. That's just where I've been soldering there. Why it's a little bit warm still. So let's just switch it on. And look what we've got here. So the only thing that's getting, I mean, I've actually just switched the power supply off there now. If I switch it back on, you can see the only thing that's getting hot there is the microcontroller. So unfortunately, I think that's the end of the line for this one. Like you see, we've got a direct short on the microcontroller. That's a shame. Well, I think that's as far as we can go with this, unfortunately. Like I say, we can't get a replacement microcontroller, not unless somebody can get a scrap board with the one that's already programmed. Because even if we bought a microcontroller, we wouldn't have the program to program into it. So therefore, this isn't repairable. And I don't think the company that makes these even exists now, unfortunately. So unfortunately, that's the way it goes sometimes. So, well, we did find the fault, or one of the faults anyway, so it's just not repairable, unfortunately. Right then, if you enjoyed this video, please give it the thumbs up. If you want to see more like it, please subscribe. Any comments or questions, please leave it in the comment section below. And as always, have a great day. Thanks for watching.